Oxford defines déjà vu as a feeling of already having experienced the present situation, and that's what I get when I play 2022's Saints Row. Now if you're thinking, Saints Row déjà vu, that might not be a bad thing. Well, I'm not talking about Saints Row 22 feeling like the Saints Row of old. I'm meaning this feels like Marvel's Avengers, Fallout 76, and to some extent, Cyberpunk 2077, when it initially launched, that is. Now, this might be my most challenging review that I've done because it feels like Saints Row isn't a finished game, like trying to review a movie before they've rendered the CGI. Now again, before I get into it, these reviews are my personal opinions, and if you don't agree with my review, then there's no problem with that. But this guy, this is not my kind of guy. Saints Row is developed by Volition, who previously created the Saints Row series when it launched in 2006, and it works as a reboot to the series in the fictional city of Santo Leso, which kinda has a western Las Vegas setting around it. Now if you've not played a Saints Row game before, well it's sorta like a GTA clone, but rather than being somewhat realistic and gritty, it feels more like the open world in Free Guy, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now, unlike the previous Saints Row games, which I've covered the remaster on this channel when I first started it, you're not a small criminal gang looking to make it big. Your character will actually start off as a security guard who gets fired, and then you and your mates set out to make an empire, because that makes what kind of sense? From there, you'll have access to a huge variety of missions, all that move towards setting up and creating your new empire, known as the Saints.
The Saints. We call ourselves the Saints.
And there's a huge variety of missions, like to set up your base of operations inside of a church, to help your friend get their car back, or drive dangerously, to cause a businessman to freak out and give you the deed to the church, and there's even things like distributing drugs inside food trucks. The game starts off with you creating a character like you'd expect in a Saints Row game, and you just jump straight into it. Now, the difference between GTA and Saints Row is the way the world in the game is set. It's a fun, over-the-top, crude, rude, insane sandbox game that makes you feel like more like you're playing GTA Online with a bunch of squeakers than playing the normal single-player GTA experience. Now, the previous Saints Row games have you start as a low-level street gang before going and making yourself into a large corporation that has its own clothing stores and energy drinks before becoming the fucking president of the United States, and that's the safe way how to explain the previous Saints Row games. Here in Saints Row 22, it doesn't overly have the over-the-top, rude, crude aspect to it, but has a much more randomness to say, a bit like Fortnite. And what I mean by that is, Fortnite is a game where you can be shooting someone dressed as Batman, who's wearing a Captain America shield on their back, before being killed by Doctor Strange or Vegeta. Here in 2022's Saints Row, you'll be driving around and you'll see some random person just dressed as an animal mascot just walking down the street. It also overly doesn't feel like what is an Australian MA15+ game, and it also feels more tame than its previous entries. What could I mean by that? Well, in my Saints Row the 3rd review, you could fire a gun that has sharks appear out of the ground and eat people, or beat someone to death with a giant dildo. Here your character holds a large broadsword with their hand on the blade, or you know, you can drive over a fire hydrant and that'll launch your car into the air.
Toilet store? Oh yeah, here we go. Whack! Holy shit!
But my god, this must be one of the most buggiest games I have ever played, and I reviewed Avengers at launch and that game bugged out so hard I couldn't do the last mission. During my time with Saints Row, I've had cars randomly explode, I've gone into a shop to buy clothes and then walk out completely naked, or wearing clothes that I just didn't buy. Anytime you drive your car into a fire hydrant, you'll be launched into the air, which at first was kinda funny, but then it became increasingly annoying. Cars will also disappear and reappear just completely out of nowhere. The co-op mode is more broken as well than the writing in the MCU post-Endgame. My mate couldn't join my game or randomly disappeared from the minimap, so we couldn't tell where we were located in the city until he was driving over me.
There's like no fast travel points in this game.
He'd also constantly drop out of games, die during some random moments in the campaign, and well, The only fun we had in co-op was laughing about the bugs that we experienced.
For fuck's sake. You should try driving this thing, man. It's actually like horrendous. Oversteer is just insane.
Now, when there isn't game-breaking bugs too, Saints Row just doesn't feel like a good, well-made game mechanically speaking. The driving in the game is very poor, and yes, it is an arcade sandbox game, but when you tap a button to drift around a corner, for some reason you can drift faster and witch the speed that you were driving at, and just slam into walls, and it just doesn't make sense, and it's kind of fucking stupid. Even the fun of, say, driving a motorbike in the game is pretty crap too. Sure, you can pull off some wheelies and you can zip around faster, but it just doesn't feel fun. Like, yeah, this is an arcade sandbox game, and I get that, but the driving in the arcade hit Hot Wheels Unleashed feels like the difference between driving a Formula 1 car and driving a Nissan Juke. Now, if you're a customization whore like I am, the option here to make a character is actually alright, but the outfits and costumes available is fairly lacking. When playing Saints Row the 3rd, your customization options are near infinite, but here in 22 Saints Row, it didn't feel as creative. Like, there are some cool outfits here and there, like an ice cream head and a taco hat, but I didn't really have fun customizing my character. Where in previous Saints Row games, I'd go out, I'd find an outfit that I'd like, I'd save money, I'd go back and I'd get it. Where here in Saints Row, once I made my character and locked in his outfit, I had no further need to do any form of customization. Now, the world, the city, or the setting of Saints Row isn't too bad. I actually don't mind the idea of moving from Stillwater, the original city, and going to a desert Las Vegas style setting, and I think it's kind of creative and fun. But having said that, the world is dead empty, like Xbox 360 original Saints Row empty. There were parts where I was driving around in a city and there were no cars and barely any people walking around. Now, this is a game, mind you, in 2022. Now, it's not a remaster of an old game, it is a new game. And it sort of feels like someone copied Saints Row the 3rd, just changed its location and didn't really change or make anything new or modern. It's the equivalent of Malibu Stacy with a new hat.
But she's got a new hat.
But is there any fun to be had? Well, me and my mate who played this together co-op online did laugh here and there from some bugs that came out, but we also had one good solid laugh from a random piece of dialogue that just came from an NPC.
Stop blocking me! I gotta take a shit!
Fucking hell.
Did you hear what he said?
No, I just saw you jump in the window and then someone T-spawned and fucking landed in front of the car.
He just shouts out, "Stop! Stop blocking me! I've got to take a shit."
There's also some close range executions that you can do to enemies, which are actually kinda rad. Some of them are really cool, but also some of them are pretty crap. Now, one of my final gripes is that this game doesn't feel like a Saints Row game. It feels like another IP that they've renamed to Saints Row. Now, I never played Agents of Mayhem, but I do know it wasn't received very well, to say the least, and it kind of feels like this game was supposed to be something else. Now, I personally link Saints Row to over the top, crude and funny, but here it sort of feels like a family friendly version of Saints Row. Like, yeah, it's an adult game, but it more feels like, say, Fortnite and Overwatch merged into an open world. Now, there's been no main story dialogue, cutscenes or anything that I found funny, and this sort of feels like the TV edit of Scarface for a Saints Row game, and if you've not seen that, dude.
Where'd you get the beauty scar, tough guy? Eating pussy?
Where'd you get that beauty scar, tough guy? Eating pineapple?
Why don't you try sticking your head up your ass? Sticking your head up your toilet.
But hey, you could be looking at this review when this game launches, or in a couple months time, or a couple of years time from now when this game is on sale. Now, will it keep you entertained? Well, it depends on what you like. Personally, this game wasn't for me, but you yourself, you might dig it. You might like a modern, open-world, Fortnite-y style game, and hey man, there's no kink shaming here. But for me, Saints Row was a game that after playing a few hours, I preferred to stop, to clean my house, to build some Lego, to walk the dogs, to go buy myself some more craft beer, to prep myself to come back to Saints Row. If you're interested in Saints Row and you've played Saints Row the 3rd way too many times, then sure, yeah, you might enjoy this. But if you're looking for something that'll have you laughing, using absurd weapons and creative things happening, I'd say maybe hold out for Destroy All Humans too.
Stop fucking me. I've gotta take a shit.